What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Heart and Hustle Presents Get It Out. I'm your host, William Hustle, and I'm here with my co-host, Big Pat. What's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. Real glad to be here. Got a good one tonight, and I hope everybody's having a good night so far.
Yes, sir. So tonight we're gonna dive into something that a lot of us might not know that we go through. At least I didn't know that I was going through it when I almost got sick. I mean, when I got sick and I almost died from not knowing I was a diabetic. So this week we're gonna talk about depression, and we both got somebody we're gonna call and ask a couple questions to. But why was depression so important to you, Big Pat?
Well, I think for all of us that go through addiction, trauma, pain, we also, there's something else that goes along with that. And when you try to numb yourself and numb your pain and trauma, you oftentimes find yourself in addiction, which, that you don't see any hope in sight. And I really just reflecting back, remembering those days where there was just no hope. That was, those were some of my darkest days when I didn't see any positive coming. There was no way there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And, you get to a point where it's like, what's the point? Why am I still here? Because you know damn well that there's not going to be, the sun's not going to rise again. You've dug yourself so deep into a hole that there's just no way out. So I think it's a huge topic just because this thing kills people. You get so wrapped up into despair and the hopelessness that you give up. This causes suicides. This causes mental illness. This causes the breakup of families. This causes the destruction of how children are brought up because their parents are just unable to love them because they can't love themselves. So, yeah, man, I think that there's so many things that this topic touches on that's important to people that are out there that are hurting, and I'm just real happy that we're able to talk about it.
And what really gets me when it comes to depression is I didn't know I was depressed. I felt like I was still doing everything that I've been doing. And I thought that I was hiding how I really felt about being sick and just not being the same anymore. And I guess it was like maybe a week or so ago where my wife was like, we was just talking about it for some reason. And she like, you was depressed. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you was depressed. I know you was depressed. But I thought nobody knows. I thought I hid it
Right.
enough. So let's get to our quote of the day.
All right. Quote of the day.
Quote of the day.
So this is just titled Depression. Nobody knows the real me. Nobody knows how many times I've cried in my room when nobody was watching. Nobody knows how many times I've lost hope, how many times I've been let down. Nobody knows how many times I've felt like I'm about to snap, but I just don't, for the sake of others. Nobody knows the thoughts that go through my head when I'm sad, how horrible they truly are. Nobody knows me. And I think that's a good reflection of when you're in the midst of depression, you really put yourself on an island, and it's a self-imposed island because even if your loved ones try to help, you're really resigned to the fact that not only can nobody understand you or understand your pain, but there's no amount of love or there's no amount of anything that can get you out of that place you're in, So
Man, I don't I don't. I try not to see things hard, but when I had to just sit back and just think about it before we did this show, I'm like, I thought nobody knew that I was depressed because I thought I was still doing everything. Just I was still being me, and to have faked that for like a year. Can you imagine, like, people who have been faking it for years? Like years of faking, like your inside is not in that depression, but everything that you're putting out, you're trying to put out as joy. That is a fight within yourself. But so who is your caller that we're gonna call today?
So tonight we're going to call Annie, and Annie's been talking to her. She's going to share some things as far as stuff that's going on in her home life, as far as just dealing with depression, and then how she's been able to work through it, and just a very loving, good friend of mine, and I'm happy that get to get her on the show. When you're medicated, it does create a barrier as far as you being able to truly deal with those feelings of, whatever's bringing you to that dark place. Sometimes it just kind of coats over just like it would an alcohol or smoking something or taking some pills. I think sometimes, sometimes these depressions last for forever because you're never really getting to the source. You're not getting to the problem. You're just numbing that problem through medication. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's up, guys?
Oh, nothing much. So
how are you, Miss Anna?
I'm doing great.
It's
How
Annie.
are you?
Yeah.
Annie.
Annie.
So Annie, tonight Will and I's topic is depression, and I know in my own life, and you have been in my life for a while. We're close, and in my own life, my depression, I would have defined it, especially through my addiction, as just a lack of hope. Looking at your own circumstances and dealing with depression and stuff, would you agree or echo any of that sentiment?
Definitely. I mean, I think as a young person, though, so I'm 45, so definitely depression has taken a different face for me in my 40s, I would say, than when I look back at my 20s, for instance. I would never have called myself a depressed human. Outwardly, I did not look depressed. I was highly functioning,
Right.
very type A, went to work every day, kind of like a go-getter, always surviving, always doing what I had to do to make ends meet,
Right.
a driven human being. Where depression played out in my younger days, I would view it now, looking back. The way it played out for me is that I would sort of self-medicate here and there. So sometimes that meant pill use, sometimes alcohol, sometimes pot, just depending, whatever. But it was very moderate. But I think I would suffer from like a lack of creativity. And most of that stemmed, like looking back on it, from just like a lack of self-love. Like that's where I see a definite thread with everybody that I know that has had depression. Most people that I know that have suffered from either severe to moderate depression, whatever, have experienced some sort of trauma as a child. So for me, that's definitely a common thread. I definitely experienced trauma as a kid in different forms. And I feel like as a young adult, I would never have said I had depression, but looking back, I know I did. I just sort of had little band-aids for it. Nowadays, in dealing with like major life events, things that have truly shaped me, highly stressful events in my life,
Right.
Depression to me is much more out. It's much more out there. I'm much more aware of it. I know when I'm going through it. It's not like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I know it's there. It's the wolf.
Right.
So when it's coming to me, it usually doesn't play out like oh, like the classic, I'm laying in bed with, an ice pack on my head and I can't get out of bed for days. Like, I believe that that's sort of like that's what we all think of when we think of depression, is somebody just like can't get out of bed, they can't function.
Right.
It's sort of like the movies version of depression. And where I really think being a more aware person now, like my depression is more like, there's like hopelessness, where, I might still get up and go to work every day. I might still be a decent mom. I'm still doing what I need to do, but there is sort of like that hopelessness that's sort of an underlying current. But being more aware of it,
helps you deal with it.
And and knowing it's there and knowing what, like, okay, yes, I'm feeling hopeless. Of course I'm feeling hopeless. I've had lots of bad events happening. I'm feeling heightened stress. Like, I have a better awareness. But, certainly even now even in my 40s, even with my kids being teenagers, I still struggle with, like, do I turn to alcohol for this?
Right.
Do I drink wine every night to deal with this? Or how am I going to deal with this, quote unquote depression,
Right.
Which often then leads to anxiety.
How do you keep yourself motivated when you catch yourself going through them moments?
Well, I think one of my biggest motivators is really just my work ethic. I think my work ethic, and that sounds sort of strange, but
Oh no, I understand you fully.
yeah, like I want to make ends meet for my family. I need to make ends meet, and for me, that's ultimately my motivator. Now, there's a lot of people that suffer with super deep anxiety, disorders and depression, where it doesn't matter which ends need to be met, they can't meet them.
Right.
So I'm definitely, I feel like, in a privileged situation where my depression and anxiety isn't so out of control that, I have no say in it, for instance. And I know people in my life that literally seem like it seems like they have no say in their anxiety and depression. And I would say the best thing you can do for yourself is to not look externally for a fix. So, looking for that glass of wine, looking for that drug, looking for, now, granted, some people have to be on anxiety meds and depression meds, and they're perfect for some people. But others, we just need to get to a place where we say, hey, okay, what can I do internally? What work can I do internally?
Absolutely.
And not reach for that glass of wine, or, and I fail continually. So
yeah, no, I
I'm
think
not going to
that's
act like it's easy,
I think that's huge though, because we do have to look within. I was telling Will before we called you that they had me on a lot of medications for most of my life. From the time I was a young kid, like 10 years old, they're putting me on amphetamines, and then it's Lexapro, and then it's bipolar medication, and it always prevented me from actually healing the problems that were wrong. I was never healing a wound. It was just like stabbing yourself with morphine and numbing yourself, but the wound was always still there. So
Right.
I know you said some people do need that medication, but I would also argue there's a good portion who get medicated that it just prolongs the depression for God knows how long, just simply because you're never really dealing with that wound. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Yeah, and I think a good analogy is, for instance, if somebody has like a blood disorder, right, that prevents them from healing a wound. Okay, so let's say somebody just bleeds out continually, right? And you can keep putting a Band-Aid on that, you can keep putting a Band-Aid on that wound, but it's, you don't see any physical blood. It's not bleeding out, but the body isn't healing itself, right? Because there's something preventing it. So that's a really good analogy for me for people who have experienced trauma.
And I really hope that they hear that.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep putting Band-Aids on it. You can keep doing that. But until you really heal those deep-seated wounds and that trauma and come to face with that trauma, any amount of Band-Aids are not going to suffice.
What would you suggest as far as to not let yourself get enveloped in that, so deep that you can't get out?
Well, I think that the three best things that I can do for myself, and this the personal thing is one, removing myself from too much input. So whether that be social media, the news, television shows that make me anxious, movies that might make me anxious, loud music, like anything that might cause a trigger for me,
Yeah.
I want to try to, minimize. So for me, that meant in May when my husband went through an emergency spinal surgery, I got off Facebook. That really helped me to minimize my anxiety, which led to better mental health in general. So my depression wasn't as bad. Second thing, I would say to stay away from, major mood altering drugs, meaning like either alcohol or whatever that is for you,
Yeah.
whatever, numbs you out, to minimize that. I understand that sometimes a glass of wine is amazing and it certainly is for me, and that's good. But when I'm, a glass of wine versus a bottle of wine are very different.
Absolutely.
And then I would say three, moving my body. Like moving my body and sweating and doing anything. It doesn't have to be even going to the gym. It doesn't have to be anything extreme. No extreme diets. I would say staying away from extreme things
Right.
would be my fourth thing. Like stop that mentality of like, it's a new year, I'm going to change everything in my life. Like we're setting ourselves up for failure. So like baby stepping your way into better habits has always worked for me.
Awesome.
Even if it's just minor things like taking a walk or, maybe not, 2 days a week, maybe just dedicating yourself to healthy practices instead of it being really like over the top,
Right.
you're going to do a new diet, a new exercise regime, you're going to quit everything. Like that never works. And so I think baby stepping your way into better living is the only way to do it.
Awesome. Annie, I thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome.
And,
to get it out, Miss Annie.
You're awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully you come on again.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. You
awesome.
have
Well, thanks, guys.
Not a problem. Love you. You have a good night.
Enjoy your
All right,
night.
you too. All right, you too. Well, thanks, Pat. Love you.
Love you
Bye.
too.
I love
Bye
you
now.
too. See, it's all love, man.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
So that was good. And I think just really echoing on the sentiment that a lot of this stuff that we hold within ourselves perpetuates more and more and more depression and more of these feelings. The inability to deal with those feelings just fuels the same constant cycle until you decide to break it. And I think to break it, we have to deal with it. And it can't be going and getting a drink every day or a drug every day.
and what's crazy is like everything she said, but when she said she has to stay away from things that could trigger
Yeah.
and affect it. And I tell my wife and I tell my mom this all the time, like, yo, at times I have to not whatever in order to keep my mind right.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're not being there for people. It doesn't mean it means one thing. You have to do the things that you need to do to keep your mind as clear as possible. Because anytime an unclear vision come upon your mind, you get to making bad decisions. You get to being captured or controlled by things other than you making your decisions. So, and I'm gonna call my youngest sister. Just a couple days ago, we had some things going on, and she was like, bro, I be dealing with depression, and I try not to let y'all know that because I ain't trying to be a burden on any of you all. And I'm like, I knew it before, but it's something that I never seen from her that I didn't think anything about it until she told me.
So we're cold calling Trina
We're
right
cold
now.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Trina, you're on.
Hey, that's what Will Hustle do, man. They know none I do is to harm nobody. That's my past life. But sis, I told him we was lightweight cold calling you. Our show is about depression, And
Absolutely.
yeah, you heard her. Uh,
Absolutely.
I said, man,
So Trina, thanks a lot for coming on. I wanted to, if you don't mind, I know looking back on my own life and looking at my lowest moments, especially during my addiction when I was, on alcohol and coke and meth all the time. I defined that
Mhm.
those times it was just they were times in my life where I didn't have any hope. There was no self love, and I never saw a positive ending. Like I said, this is it. This is how I'm going to go. Would you echo that with any of the stuff that you've dealt with?
Um, the I just find myself like as far as like there's no you can't find the positive aspects in life. Like you can't find those positive moments.
Yes, ma'am.
But mine is more of due to like it's just it comes and goes for me. Like it can be a moment, it can be a sense that will just cause me, or even an unconscious thought that will cause me to, and it triggers something where it just makes me depressed.
Yeah.
and how long have you been
But
dealing with this?
I've been dealing with it for about a year or two. But I've learned different avenues of helping to cope with it and bring myself out of it.
Our previous caller, the
But
person we called before, said that they, to deal with their depression, would try to get away from like social media and anything that would be negative. Is that? And do you try to do anything
yes,
similar? Yeah.
yes, like like I do a hiatus on social media for some days or even a week. But I've also found that working out actually helps me more
Yeah.
than anything.
And I don't know if you knew, like I told him, this is something that me and you never had talked about, and I didn't think my wife knows, so I'm gonna ask you, like, did you know that I was depressed when I got sick?
Yes,
So you knew too.
yes, because I know you and I know the lively person that you are and how close we are and how much we talk. And you could tell within our conversations that you were struggling with it.
That's crazy.
And you didn't ask for help and you didn't say anything, but I seen the I seen the change, and I I seen no harm. I seen myself, and I'm like, he going through it too. Like, how can we get him out of it? Like, like when you were going through it, I'm like, whoa, that's no harm. It's like me looking in the mirror, looking at myself as an older person
I
because
didn't
you're my
think
older
no,
brother.
I didn't think nobody knew until Kathy told me a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, wow, cause
Yes, no,
yeah, that's and the thing about it is that when I realized I was depressed, I realized how much harm I was doing in my life with the decisions I was making. And I mean, I was still going
yeah,
to
it was
work,
just
but I
your
was making bad.
conversation.
Yeah, I
It was
didn't.
your conversations. Like our conversations are normally uplifting and positive, and yeah, you was just wow, wow, attack, attack, and I'm like, gee,
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
dude,
had to
yeah,
give
you
myself.
had a
I
lot
didn't
of,
understand it. I didn't understand
yeah,
it.
It's crazy how that
yeah, but I
energy.
mean,
Real talk.
you
That's
can
why I
see
get mad about the
yeah,
energy now.
Yeah. It's
Seriously,
that energy can overtake you.
and it's great.
yeah, but I'm not one to take medication. I'm one that goes for alternative route.
Right.
And that's
So
why.
that's the best thing for me is the alternative route
Right.
because if I've dealt with it for 2 years and no harm, I haven't hurt anybody or myself, I can get myself out of this without the medication.
Absolutely.
And my beliefs as well. My beliefs as well.
It's funny you said that because they had me on medicines from an early age, and in my own life, I felt like all the medication did was like it never healed the wound. The reason that I was
No,
depressed, it just was like a soldier getting that morphine stick when they've been wounded. It might take some of the pain away, but it never really deals with the issue. It doesn't deal with the underlying issue of the pain. And
no,
until
it's to medicate you, not help resolve the issue.
right,
And that's why I go to alternatives
Yeah.
because being, newly diagnosed with this, and I self-diagnosed myself because I seen myself going downward, and I'm like, something's wrong.
Right.
Something's not right. So for me, it was like seeing myself like an outer body experience, seeing myself, and I'm like, whoa, this is not true. Snap out of it. Try to snap out of it, and I just start researching.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a snap out of it, but I'm one to research and look up stuff and find different avenues because I don't want to take the medication because I'm scared of all of the side effects
Right.
of what it will do to me.
You said something earlier when you first came on as far as thoughts and the thoughts that, come in. And I think it's something that we all have to deal with, but nobody hurts us as much as our own mind does at times. And the thoughts that pop in our head aren't really coming from anybody else. They're coming internal. The whole key is to try to not put any weight into those thoughts and let them roll by. That sometimes can be an uphill battle. I know it was for me. What steps do you take because I know that our whole thing here is you got to get it out. You got to deal with this stuff. But what steps for others that are going through this would you suggest to help those thoughts roll by instead of holding on to them, which causes even deeper and darker depression?
So for me to help God, well, I am not a cook. Let me say that. But I have learned different avenues to help with my depression. It is actually making my food from scratch. It's those step-by-step extra in things that you do to help get you out of it.
Yeah.
I work out, I run, I jump rope now, I hula hoop now. Those are different avenues that help me get out of that mind state and snap out of it. But the cooking is one thing that really helps me. And I'm like I said, I'm not a cook.
Right.
You're getting better. You're getting better.
You're right.
You're getting better.
Like wine, get better with time. Yes.
You're getting better.
So I've learned to make things from scratch. Is it bread? Hey, I look up a recipe for bread, and all of those extra steps help me to snap myself out of my depression.
Nice.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for allowing us to call you and share your story with us, sis.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you guys for adding me onto the call. I appreciate it.
I already know. Thanks, sis.
You have a great night.
No problem. Thank you guys. You
all right.
too.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's get a round of applause for that one. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was finna give a round of applause when she said she don't cook. But man.
Hey, she said something about working out, and I'll tell you, the gym is huge in my life, man.
Period.
And I mean, if I don't go to the gym for 3 days, I start to feel bad. I got to get to the gym. But that just being active in general is such a huge thing that I think it's worth mentioning over and over again that if we sit there and stew in our thoughts, it's just like taking a bath in a swamp. You're going to be dirty. It's not going to be where you want to be. But if you're moving around, you can actually start to bring other things into your awareness, into your consciousness by working out, by cooking, like your sister said. You're filling your mind with other stuff that's going to take you out of that depression, which is, I think, great advice.
And, please don't do like I did. I mean, I knew I was going through something, but I didn't care because I didn't think that anything changed about me. And the one thing that I learned from that is when you feel and know that you are going through something, I mean, whoever the closest person to you, you have to tell them because it can hurt you in your life in so many different ways. And if your life now is about making the right decisions and doing the things that you have to do to better your life, then you can't deal with any type of fugaziness like that, which is ignoring the things that we know aren't right or don't feel right. Um,
Yeah, you have to be protective of what you allow and your who gets to sit at your table, and it can't just be an open door policy. I mean, you have to be protective of your peace of mind. If you're going to allow anything into your life, then you'll have to be expecting anything can happen, But we have control over who, what, and the places we go. What we do. We
Yes,
have
sir.
that. We have that control. So I do definitely think it's healthy that we're protective of what we allow in.
So I want to share something, with you all. It's not the quote of the day, but it is my motivation. I always want to give you something to just think about, whether you accept it, at least think about it. And it's going to be on the topic that we're dealing with. So we want you to get help. The side effects of depression can upend your life, your family, and your dreams. Talk about it. Get it out.
Get it out.
You have to talk about it and get it out. Find professional or a safe circle of people who can be honest with you. You don't need no one in your life that's going to be fugazi to you, that's harming you. If you don't want real in your life, then you're not looking for the joy that life has to offer you. Combat depression with medication, therapy, or a strong will. Don't forget how beautiful life is with you in it. You have to care about your life. You have to care about the lives of those that you are responsible for in whatever way. And you have to get it out in order to live life. Give me some, Big Pat, before we end this show.
Yeah. So just to close, I like this. This is by, actually, it's an unknown author, but I'm slowly learning that even if I react, it won't change anything. It won't make people suddenly love and respect me. It won't magically change their minds. Sometimes it's better to just let things be. Let people go. Don't fight for closure. Don't ask for explanations. Don't chase answers. And don't expect people to understand where you're coming from. I'm slowly learning that life is better lived when you don't center it on what's happening around you and center it on what's happening inside you instead. Work on yourself and your inner peace.
See the beauty in life and not the negative. And we want to thank you all for listening to Get It Out. We'll see you on our next episode.
Have a great week.
I'm your man, William Hustle.
This is Big Pat.
Get it out.
Yeah.